majors, obviously connected, chemistry and theater. And take it away.
Hi everyone, I need a brief moment to set up, so please take a moment to stretch your legs, do whatever you need, because you have been sitting for a while, and we'll begin in a moment.
Yeah, there's one piece left.
What's the range of motion?
Trying to get it going. It's so inspiring. It's not one year.
Where do you want to in this area?
She was literally. Miguel was crying over that. No, it's just amazing. The guys, 2 kids. That hit really. Yeah, that wasn't surprising. I was like, actually.
Oh, you did.
She was. She got everything.
Are people starting to come back to me? Okay. So, hi everyone, my name is Leslie Sawyer, and as mentioned, I am a dietetics major with a double minor in chemistry and theater. And for the past year, I've been working with Phil Bidwell to coordinate a pollinator garden here on campus. So, I wanted to start a conversation with a little bit about why I became interested in this topic. And it actually, believe it or not, started with Facebook. You guys know all those articles, maybe like BuzzFeed, for example, of those things that take some issue that you don't think is too serious and blows it way out of proportion and makes it seem like it's the absolute worst thing in the world. You guys know those ones? Yeah, that's what happened to me with this topic. So, like everything else I see on Facebook, that stresses me out. I brushed it off and pretended it didn't exist. And I didn't really think about this until about a month later. So I guess I should backtrack a little bit. In being a dietetics major, I absolutely love food. I love to grocery shop. My friends make fun of me for how much time I spend in Hannaford, because it averages about an hour each trip. So with that, one of my favorite places to go in Oneonta is the Green Earth Market. Has anyone been there before? Yes. Has anyone bought honey before? Does anyone know the big honey vat in the back of the store? No? Okay. So let me explain it to you. First, I definitely recommend the honey vat. You can bring your own container, or they have some containers there. You can buy a pound of honey for $3.50 a pound. But, I mean, you can pick however much you want. You don't need to bring in a pound container. And a benefit of eating local honey is it can reduce your seasonal allergies, which is a little bit on the dietetics side, but that's not really what we're talking about today. So, being a dietetics major and absolutely loving to grocery shop, I would go there every weekend. I would walk in with my little container. The cashier would greet me by name because I was there all the time, and it was my favorite thing to do. So one weekend, I went there. I had my little container. I said hello to the cashier, and I walked to the back of the store. And I pulled the lever on the honey vat, and absolutely nothing happened. And I was really confused. I was really disappointed. And I looked up, and there was a note above the honey vat explaining that the colony that they normally buy from had died due to colony collapse. They were unable to have the honey that they normally have. And that's really when all of this became real to me. So, in doing that, like any other man on a mission, I went straight home and I researched for days on end about the bee population, other pollinator populations, what colony collapse is, how that affects the human race, and how that impacts the rest of the world. And what I found startled me to my core. So, without pollinators, we can't fertilize our plants. Without plants, we can't have produce to consume or to feed our livestock. Without produce and without livestock, our food source disappears. And that shook me to my core. And that was my cue to action. So, I, as a little freshman Leslie, was sitting in her bed at around 3 in the morning, completely terrified, confused, and shocked, and I didn't know what to do. And my roommate snored, so I was also awake for a long time. So I was just thinking about things that I could do. I lived on my laptop researching things. I talked to as many people as I could, and I came to the conclusion of a pollinator garden. So not knowing really where to start with that, I just talked to everybody, all of my friends, every professor that I knew, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people got really sick of me for always talking about it. I was like a one-track record. So eventually, I came in contact with Rachel Kornhauser, and she put me in the direction of Phil Bidwell, and I met with Phil, and he told me everything that I wanted to hear. We found a location for the garden, and he really told me that it was going to happen, and I'm proud to say that this is going to be a permanent part of our campus. So with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the garden that we have. Oh, okay, wrong way, sorry. So first, I should probably explain what a pollinator garden is. So a pollinator garden is a garden of native wildflowers that really helps foster any pollinator species in that area. And a pollinator is any animal that moves pollen from one plant to another. So this is the location for our garden, if anyone's familiar with campus. There's the tennis courts. The tennis court lot is kind of below here. Hillside's way up there, way up in the corner. There's a storage facility for grounds crew over here. So we picked this area because it has a great inflow and outflow of water. So as you can see, there's little lines of where there's more vegetation. Can you guys see that? Yes, that's where the water flows. So it's really important to have in a pollinator garden water for the bees themselves and to nurture the plant species that are there. And we also picked this area because it is still available to the students on campus. They can see it when they park, have the tennis matches and things along those lines, but it's not in the middle of campus, so it won't have as much human interference as we would if we picked a different area. So, this is just a picture. I drove up here so many times over the summer. This is just a picture of the area from more of a person on the ground perspective. And this is a picture of it in the fall. And I just wanted to include this picture because I do think it's really pretty. So this is the area that we have, and we're doing a little bit of work on it, but we do need some volunteers. So the volunteers, what do we need them to do? So we need some help with project cleanup. So there is a little bit of debris in the area, a little bit of garbage, just because that area is not really maintained by grounds crew. So there is a little bit going on that we need to pick up ourselves. And we also need seed collection and storage. So I have gone down a few times in the late fall when the plants start to dry out to collect some of the seeds that are there and to store them, to dry them out so we can replant them. And we really want to do seed collection so we can avoid having to apply for a big grant. And if we collect natural seeds, we already know that they thrive in the area that we're growing in because we got them from the area that they were growing in. And it ensures that they're natural and there's no pesticides, no chemicals, nothing along those lines, so that wouldn't even be a concern for us. And then I also need help with species identification. So, as mentioned a few times, I'm a dietetics major. I have really no background other than the research that I've done on my own about the pollinator species and the flowers and the local native things that we have in this area, so it would be wonderful if we could have some people, student volunteers to help out. They could put this on their resume as well, and help document what we have in our area. So this is just my email if any volunteers wanted to reach out to me. I also have sign-up sheets here at the end of our discussion today if anyone wanted to give me their name and email and be in contact with me. Later in the semester, we are starting to meet weekly just for some updates and some things that are going on. And when it starts to get warmer, we'll start meeting more often just to talk about the cleanup, the dates, and try to get as many volunteers as possible. So now that you know all about my garden and basically my plant baby, I wanted to talk about some things that you could do on your own to have your own pollinator garden. And I have this on a little handout too, so at the end of our discussion, if you wanted to pick one up, I have those for you as well. So there are 5 main things that you need for a successful pollinator garden. And I did actually take that picture. I have portrait mode on my phone, so I was really proud of that, and I wanted to make you look at it. So the first thing that you need is a diverse selection of native plant species, which you can collect, from your backyard. You really don't need anything crazy. You don't need to buy seeds. If you have a wildflower area, just let it grow. Don't cut it down, don't spray with anything. Let it do its natural thing. And then the next thing you need is a source of water. So you would prefer to have moving water just so it doesn't get moldy, but if you don't really have that option, that's okay. You also want some dry soil because there are some pollinator insects and other insects crucial to this kind of environment that like to nest in the ground, and they do need the dry soil for that. And they also need a habitat, which is just a place for different species to live. So you need like leaves, some rocks, just something that they could tunnel in, feel safe under, and just so they're more likely to stay in that area. And you also want to have protection. So this goes along with using the natural native flowers that you find because you want protection from chemicals, because obviously pesticides and things are designed to kill bugs, and we don't want to kill the bugs, so you want to make sure that you don't have that. So with all of those things, those are really all the things you need. There's my email again. If you guys had any questions or just wanted to reach out to me, you could also write it down there. But I also wanted to guide the discussion a little bit more about some other things that we could do for this population. Does anyone have any ideas, or do you want me to keep talking? Okay, I'll keep talking, that's fine. So one of the things, I mean, I'm one person, and speaking with all of you, there's about 40 of you here. I just raised your awareness by 40 more people. So just keep talking about it. I mean, this is a huge threat to the human population if we don't have these pollinators. So just tell everyone you know. Be like freshman Leslie and never stop talking about it. Another thing that you could do, as mentioned earlier in one of the videos, was to support plants that don't, or support farmers, my bad, that don't use a lot of spray or have organic produce, if you can afford it. I understand organic can be kind of expensive. But if you do that and you keep supporting these local farmers, and if you attend farmers markets and talk to them and let them know that you appreciate what they're doing without using these pesticides that harm these species, you can help improve the quality, and you can help save this population that is dying out. So that's all I have for you guys. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Mr. O.
Have you got in touch with Paul Ward at all?
I have not.
Or Donna Vogel?
I have spoken with Dr. Woodley.
Okay, 'cause
John
Paul, of
Robinson.
course, is up in Cooperstown.
I have emailed him. I haven't spoken with him in person.
Oh?
With Sean Robinson.
Because they both, Donna, well, Dr. Vogel
Mm-hmm.
knows an awful lot about invasive species. And I know that for a while there was a student group called Forces
Mm-hmm.
that was looking at removing invasive plants because, of course, certainly in that area there would be invasive plants.
Mm-hmm.
And, with respect to hive collapse, the difficulty that we have is that, well, there's mites and there's all sorts of problems that bees have
Yes.
that are making it difficult for them to live in the wild because
Mm-hmm.
apparently bees like to pilfer from each other. So any problem that any hive has, well, they bring it home.
Yes.
So, what we may be facing is the fact that hives have to be supported by humans because we can take the necessary action to limit the impact of the mites and such and such.
Yeah, so what we are doing, I didn't mention this, I should have. We are having some bee housing areas in this, hung on the trees and in the middle of the section. Let me see if I could go back to where we were.
Just gonna have to treat them for mites and
Mm-hmm.
mites and all that other stuff.
So in this area, we will have some housing we also have birdhouses too, just to keep the area pretty and sounding nice. We will have some bee housing along the top rim and a little bit on the interior, just to provide that housing that you mentioned before. Yes?
Are they gonna be apiaries that honey can be pulled from, or are they just?
They'll be native, so we're not bringing in anything, we're just gonna provide a habitat. So our main purpose of this garden, hopefully it will be functional, and we're hoping that it does bring in a lot of species and helps them have an environment that's safe for them, but the main point was to build awareness on our campus about it, because since it will be a permanent part of campus, I've spoken with some environmental professors, and they did say that they're gonna take their classes up to it once it's all set, and we're gonna have a sign explaining what it is, and our main goal is to build awareness, just so more people know about it and are willing to help out. Yes?
You had mentioned that about just letting the wildflower develop naturally
Mhm.
on site. Are you also considering bringing in some seeds that aren't there right now?
Yes, we've talked about it. We're trying to do this as grant-free as possible. We're trying not to make this a huge money project. So right now, I have been seed collecting. Let me see if I could actually find this picture. This is about when I went down. This is the day that I seed collected. I went down and I was there for 6 hours just pulling seeds like crazy. So we're definitely gonna have a lot from this area. When we have more volunteers, we do want to go up to college camp and have some of the native flowers from that area brought down if they're not there already, and just to collect more seeds. So we're hoping to not have to bring in a lot of other things, just because we also don't know if they thrive in this environment or not. We want to try to focus on the things that are already there, because in this area, when I was down there were a lot of bees and other insects already. We just want to try to incorporate that and encourage more to join our campus. Are there any other questions? Yes.
I wonder if there's some other student group or some other class or department who would be interested in photo documenting or video documenting the changes.
Yes, I actually, when I was first developing this project and trying to get volunteers, I went to every single environmental club and I presented, similar to the presentation I just gave today. And I haven't talked to the art department yet. The photography is a really interesting idea and I would need to look more into that. But I did get a lot of student outreach. I had about 40 volunteers that did sign up already to help out with things that we need. But the photography is a really, really good idea and I appreciate that input. Yes?
Do you guys have signage for the area?
Currently, we do not. That is something we would need to apply a grant for. So we have a design for the sign. I should have brought a picture, but I didn't. I guess I could explain it briefly. It's going to be a little arch, and we're going to have like some vining plants grow over it, just to keep it, I don't know, cute. And we were going to have a section in the middle kind of explaining what the garden is and how it helps our population, how it helps the bee population, the other pollinators in the area, and the importance of the garden and how it does bring awareness to campus. So there will be a sign. We don't have one currently. That's a work in progress. But, yes?
Have you been stung by a bee?
Once, actually. I sat on it by accident. And it was the worst couple of days of my life, because I don't think you understand how much you have to stand after something like that happens. But only once, so I still love them, though. I forgave that one bee. I think if someone sat on me, I'd be pretty mad, too.
Honeybees are generally non-aggressive,
Mhm.
so unless you're after a hive or sitting on them, they really don't fuss with you.
That's
Yellow
true.
jackets are a different matter.
Definitely. Yeah, and I wasn't stung by a honeybee. I think it was definitely like a wasp along those lines. And it was inside my house, so that was a nightmare. One more other thing to prevent the loss of this population. If you see someone kill a bee, just tell them not to do that. I volunteered at a farmer's market over the summer, and there's a beehive nearby on one of the buildings near the stand that I normally worked at, and the guy next to me was just swatting them like crazy, and I wept. I was like, "Sir, you need to stop." And we got into an argument, which is fine. But then he was asked to never come back to the market, so that worked out, I guess. So does anyone else have any more questions?
So what would you do if you had a beehive in an area where there's a lot of people walking? So I had one of those near my house,
Yes.
which was pointed out to me by a professor in our department, Jeff Highball, who studies insects.
Yes.
He said, Fred, he walked by my house and he told me about it. Fred, you got to take care of this, because they were buzzing by,
Yes.
the sidewalk. So what would you do if you had this?
I would contact a professional. There are professionals, and I don't know their specific name or terminology, but I have seen videos of them removing beehives safely and relocating them to a place where they will be safer and they won't be interfering with any human activity.
Typically, if you just contact somebody who raises bees and sells honey, usually, sometimes they'll come for free,
Yes.
depending on the workload. It's not always successful relocating a hive, but once again, honeybees are not aggressive. So
These guys were aggressive.
And we do have a lot of
it's a
those.
different take on
If
it.
they were African, that's a different.
And those who do raise bees, we do have a lot of them in our area, because the hive that I mentioned from the Green Market is located in Cooperstown, which isn't that far. And I know there's a few bee nurseries in that area as well.
So I just wanted, my father raises bees, and he's got about 40 apiaries, and he has captured swarms before, and he does relocations. And even if the queen dies, sometimes they can raise a new queen and introduce it to the hive. So.
Yeah, and it's better to try than nothing at all. So even if it doesn't work, it's better to try than to just throw it in the trash and let it die. Any other questions? Yes?
Is this garden like interactive? Like, will the students be able to go into it?
My hope is yes. So far, it's gonna look like this pretty much most of the time, and walking down it is pretty muddy at the bottom just because of the water inflow and outflow. But I know a lot of classes will be going up to this area and studying it once it's fully set up. And we are looking into purchasing some benches and things like that, just so students can sit and enjoy, because we will have the birds and it'll be right next to the tennis courts. And hopefully we do want it to be a nice area. And there was actually, let me go back to the other picture. Okay. So you can't really see here, but way at the top, there's a hiking trail in those trees that kind of is overgrown now because a lot of students, nobody really hikes anymore in this campus, which is a disappointment. So we're hoping that we already talked with grounds crew, and once this project is set up, they are going to start taking care of that hiking path again, so hopefully more students do start to walk through. I also wanted to get a swing set, but that was vetoed. So, but I'm still hoping on that, so maybe there'll be a swing set there
Oh, there are
too.
liability issues with swing sets.
And especially my thought was that like if someone swings into the ditch and falls off, that'd be a nightmare. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you, you guys.